Jonathan, the news came down this morning shortly after 9 o'clock, I believe, that Kamala Harris had selected the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, to be her running mate. Your thoughts?
I think it was an excellent pick. And honestly, throughout these podcasts and these conversations we've had, we've always said that the finalists that she had, she really could do no wrong with any of them because they all had, even Shapiro had a favorability rate out of their state. Um, I believe if you're trying to reach um, a little bit different demographic than you were with Shapiro, then Tim Walz is definitely the way to go. And also with this excellent pick, we're going to call it the Walz effect because we're going to go balls to the walls. The stock market right now has actually rebounded from yesterday's little hiccup, if you want to call it that, and it's up right now $432, 1.12%. So we're going to call it the Harris effect too, to where she makes this selection and the stock market's starting to rebound. But exciting day for Harris, exciting day for Walz, and exciting day for the Democratic Party to get this kicked off before the Democratic convention.
Yeah, this was the plan all along to get the candidate by today, Kamala Harris, with a huge rally in Philadelphia tonight. And many thought it would be the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, where Kamala is speaking tonight, Josh Shapiro. In the end, it came down to Shapiro and to Tim Walz. There were even reports that Kamala Harris thought she had to sleep on it and really didn't really finalize this decision until this morning, Tuesday, August 6th. But she went with Tim Walz. I know there's some people disappointed for a couple of reasons that didn't pick Josh Shapiro. One, if you look at the electoral map, you'd love to kind of guarantee Pennsylvania, and I think picking Josh Shapiro would do that. On the other hand, he's not as progressive friendly, I think, as maybe some of the Democrats were looking for. He's had some interesting comments on the Israel Palestine situation. My mom was all up in my text messages early this morning because, as a Jewish family, it would have been nice to see, a Jewish person that was a heartbeat away from the presidency. But in the end, I think Kamala made the right decision. Let's just talk about who Tim Walz is, Jonathan. Governor of Minnesota. Before that, he was in Congress, did a lot of work with veterans and Veterans Affairs. Because why did he do that? Because he served for more than 2 decades in the National Guard. A matter of fact, he rose to the second highest rank a non-commissioned officer can get in the Army National Guard as Command Sergeant Major. So he had an amazing National Guard career. After that, he was a school teacher, a football coach. He's a dog lover, a cat lover. You know what he is, and I've seen this already, Jonathan. He's like America's dad. That's who he. That's who Tim Walz is. He was born in rural Nebraska, about an hour and a half away from you, in rural Nebraska, kind of halfway between Sioux City and Omaha, and then he moved to Minnesota when he met his wife, who is from Minnesota. But he's that all-American guy, Jonathan. He goes and hunts, so he's, a Second Amendment guy, but he's also done a lot in Minnesota to curb gun violence, and work on that problem. He's just an all-around, seems like a good, decent human being. And I think to have someone that kind of represents the Midwest and rural America and able to talk to those folks is really, really important for this campaign. The first vice presidential candidate not to have a law degree, maybe ever. So it just goes to show you he's one of us.
Yeah, he's definitely relatable, and it goes back to even he has like this um, thing about him that draws people towards him, and it even draws um, even like children when he passed the school lunch legislation in Minnesota where they could get free lunches. You could see that he enjoyed the people around him and the people enjoyed to be around him. He's also very funny. He's very witty. He's definitely really, really sharp with the comebacks. But yeah, I think the one thing to where uh, VP Harris made the smartest choice was she uh, picked somebody that is going to be able to go out there and talk to people, and they're going to see a little bit of themselves inside of him just by the things that you described: the hunting, the being the teacher, his service. I think that's all going to be relatable to the voters, and I believe that he's going to have some characteristics um, that will help in Pennsylvania, but he's definitely going to help in the states like Ohio and Wisconsin, where even in Ohio, it's in Wisconsin, sometimes the race can be just as tight as what it is in Pennsylvania. So I think she believes she needs those two key elements to win the electoral college outside of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I could see him getting on the stump in all of those swing states. You talked about Wisconsin, you talked about Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. I think he's going to go over very well in those places. Let's just talk about a couple of the things that he did accomplish while the governor of Minnesota. Okay, you mentioned the universal school meals; he got that done. Stronger labor protections. Cannabis legalization. He made stronger LGBTQ protections a priority. Paid sick leave. He's got a goal to get Minnesota to 100% clean energy by 2030. He's protected reproductive rights and the rights for women's health care. Got 1 billion for housing. Is a gun owner and goes hunting, but did do a lot as it relates to gun safety, and he cut child poverty by a third. By all means, by all measurements, he's an extremely popular governor in Minnesota, and I think this is only going to help the reach of the Harris campaign that we talked about in our podcast this week of how she's reaching different demographics. Governor Walz is only going to increase that reach, I think.
His favorability rating definitely in Minnesota is a net positive. And here's another thing that I think that is really important here is that nationally, I think out of some of the others, maybe 80 Shear, um, he's unknown. So there's not a lot of other baggage that comes with him, and people can get their perspective of him during the campaign instead of already having a perspective of him going into it. Um, but yeah, he's definitely going to be uh, definitely well liked. His favorability is definitely a net positive, and he's not going to be like somebody like JD Vance, who Donald Trump selected, who had a negative favorability, and his actually favorability rating is going down. Walz is definitely going to be somebody that's going to be um, attract a lot of people his way just with his personality.
Johnathan, the attacks have already started from MAGA and the cultists, saying, "Oh, it's the most liberal ticket, most left wing ticket ever in the history of mankind." Um, that's just that's not the case. I don't know what they're I don't know what the deal is there. That's just not the case.
And let's just say that it is the case, and it is a progressive ticket. What's wrong with it? Um, we've already established that some of the legislation that even President Biden got passed, the most progressive legislation was the ones that was actually more popular with the people of the United States, as far as the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Bill, the PACT Act, the Chips and Science Act. I mean, all of those progressive bills are very, very popular with the people of the United States. And let's also remember progression or progressive means moving forward, and it means progress. And that's what we need. We need progress.
Yeah, it's progressive has, those of us that are progressives love that word, right? But on the other side, progressive means Satan. And that's simply not the case at all. I do think I do think, and I haven't done a deep dive on X yet or any. I haven't done a bunch of research, but I would think that Tim Walz will help if there's people that are still on the fence. Hey, I'm really conservative. I'm really Republican. I'm gonna vote for Trump. I don't really like him, but I don't like Kamala or Joe and all this stuff. I think it may be able to swing some of those voters to be like, okay, I can get with this ticket now. I can get with Kamala and Tim Walz. I can do that. So I think it might bring more people to the fold. Oh, and I forgot this as far as accomplishments go, Jonathan, and this is maybe the biggest one. He's the one that came up with coining MAGA cult freak shows weird.
I
He
know.
start
I seen the press
he
conference about that.
he started the weird craze.
Yeah, and you got me all sidetracked with the whole weirdo part.
No, it's true.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he's definitely brings quite a bit of normalcy back. I mean, he's just a normal guy. And I think that that's going to be something that's really going to stick out to a lot of people going forward. And the only thing that the stuff that I'm reading, you notice that I'm looking down because I'm looking at breaking news, I'm looking at different comments. But the one thing that I don't know if anybody else could smell fear, but I'm smelling it. Like they
Oh,
are the Republicans feared VP Harris before today. You could see that their rhetoric was changing to where they definitely knew that something was up as far as polling, as far as enthusiasm, as far as unfavorability, as far as even you go as far as crowd size, which was always their bread and butter with Donald Trump was Joe Biden, the Democrats can only get 15 people at a rally. And now you got Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where she got a sold out crowd of 3,000. You got Atlanta, where she had a sold out crowd of 10,000. And now she's picked her VP. We'll see what the enthusiasm is in Philadelphia tonight. But of all reports I've heard, it's going to be 10,000 plus. So they just need to continue. Democrats just need to continue on the same path that they're going. They need to continue on messaging leading up to the Democratic Party or convention. And then after the Democratic convention, they need to go and start speaking policy because and start speaking to the American people of not only why Harris is different and Walz is different than JD Vance and Trump personally and convictions and liability, but why they're going to be different as far as moving the country forward with policies and procedures.
this is how you know that the Trump campaign is kind of in a free fall. While Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to go make 7 stops over the next 10 days, Donald Trump has one event this week in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Montana. Nothing wrong with the state of Montana, but it's not very important as it relates to the electoral map. I don't think Montana has ever decided a presidency. And it's 60 points or some god ridiculous number pro Republican in Montana. So you couldn't pick a safer spot for Trump to go. He's playing golf. He's hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. He's not doing much. Either it's because he's old and tired and feeble and can't get out there as much, or he's being cocky and thinks he won, and that's not the case.
I don't think it's I don't think it's cockiness. I think it's their campaign is in shambles right now, and I think they're having problems deciding which angle they want to go with this. Just because the things that they have on VP Harris, or even what we pointed out here today with Governor Walz, is just ridiculous, stupid opinions that just aren't going to stick with the American people, and that's why you have Republicans for Harris, it's because people are getting tired of the attacks and the rhetoric that are continuously coming from Donald Trump, and that the pushback. So now we're starting to get pushback even from the Republican Party and from the Democratic Party. And I just am going to be totally blown away just seeing what the Democratic Party and Harris does moving forward with Governor Tim Walz. And let's also keep in mind that I don't think it's out of the realm that Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg or some of these other candidates uh, couldn't end up with some type of role in her administration, or we're well aware that they're going to campaign for her in each of the respective states. You're going to have Mark Kelly in Arizona campaigning. You're going to have Josh Shapiro um, in Pennsylvania campaigning. You're going to have Andy Bashir bouncing around to these red districts and campaigning. You're going to have Governor Whitmer up in Michigan campaigning. You're going to have Gavin Newsom flying all around um, campaigning. So it's not like just because they weren't selected, they're not going to be influencing her campaign or influencing people's mind leading into the 2024 election. There's a reason why they were finalists, and that's because each one of them would have brought something positive to her campaign.
Yeah. And listen, a lot of times some Americans are pushed away by not being able to relate to their candidates. You know, the MAGA will say, "Oh, Kamala is, is a coastal elite from San Francisco," blah 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 blah. Or even though everyone goes to Ivy League schools, MAGA will be like, "Oh, the Harvard lawyer, the this, that, whatever." Tim Walz isn't that guy. He went to a small college. He was a teacher. He was in the Army, National Guard. He was a football coach. He likes to pet dogs and cats and potbelly pigs. He's a matter of fact, he lives in a White House behind a white picket fence with two kids. He's as emblematic of the American story as anyone else, and I think that sort of storyline is going to be pushed by the Harris campaign, and they're going to get him out there on the stump to go talk to everyday Americans and see if they can get that message across.
And also, let's talk about Minnesota as far as the state. Walls during the recent polling that I just looked at had anywhere between 9% and a 12% lead against the Republicans. So it's an extremely blue state and becoming more and more blue. So it's not one that is in jeopardy of the Democratic Party losing if she picked them. I think taking Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania could have jeopardized that future elections. And I think Mark Kelly leaving Arizona could have even jeopardized that election. That's why the only other person I've seen logically, as far as if we lost that state as a governor, it wouldn't impact the Democratic Party as much, and that was Andy Bashir. But I'm extremely happy for Governor Walz, and um, I just don't think she could have went wrong with any pick.
MAGA trying to create all this fear, right? Wars in Iran and Israel and in the Middle East and Ukraine, immigrants coming to the border, the economy, which is totally fine, but they're going to make you think it sucks. All of the stuff, fear, fear, fear. And I think Kamala and Tim Walz are going to be the opposite and push positive, positive, positive. Look at how great we are. Look at how great we're doing. It can continue to be this great. Vote for us.
And I think that's the biggest message they have to relay to the American people and the American voters is and I think that's what was so key. Let's just back up a second. That's what I think was so key to even um, President Obama's rise so quickly from a U.S. senator is he gave people a sense of hope or positive um, speeches, and it inspired people to want to vote and support him. even if they didn't agree with all of his policies. And I think that's where VP Harris and Governor Walz has got to go to, is they have to inspire the American people of why to vote for them, because we all recognize that there's some, even though the economy's really is great, there are some things that they're going to have to justify with the American people on how they're going to improve inflation, gas prices. They're going to have to take that to the American people. But as long as they take that to the American people and then also show the positive impact, just like we talk about fear mongering that you brought up, and I decided to go back on this a little bit, is they talked about this doomsday of I don't remember what they call it, Black Monday or whatever it was. But I remember getting a text message from you showing me the Tokyo stock that dropped 12.5% in one day, and global markets were dropping, global markets were shutting down. There's a fear that we're going to have a huge drop in the US market Monday. And the GOP and the MAGA alike were praising and hoping that this stock market crashed. So they're hoping that America was going to fail and that there was going to be suffering so that it would hurt Harris and Harris alone. But like I pointed out today or last night, I just heard that the Tokyo or Japan markets bounced back 10% of the 12.5% lost. And the Dow Jones right now is up 516 and 1.34%. So only 1% left to take back what was lost of yesterday. So that's where we have to keep communicating that they can keep giving you this fear, but we're going to continue to give you hope, and we're going to be just fine at the end of the day.
I just I have a vision before we wrap this thing up. I have a vision for tonight in Philadelphia of, Kamala coming out to Freedom by Beyonce, and then she introduces the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, to Lil Jon's Get Low, because it's to the windows, to the walls.
Yeah. So if anybody hasn't listened to Beyonce's, I never heard of the song until I heard that it was that Beyonce gave Harris permission to use the song Freedom. It's actually a really, really good song. And video, if you listen to, have you seen the video, Brian?
I have not. I feel like I'm letting
So
everyone
if
down by
you,
saying I haven't.
I really suggest people to go to YouTube and just listen to the video and watch the video and listen to the song, um, because it tells a really, really compelling story. Just to get off track a little bit, just because you brought up the song, but um, yeah, it's a great song choice, and I'm looking forward to what Tim is going to bring, and he's getting backing from just about everybody in the Democratic Party, from Nancy Pelosi to Beto to Joe Manchin to AOC to, I mean, they're all coming together right now and singing praise of her selection.
Yeah, I think it's unanimous. Even listen, people may have wanted other. Listen, all of the candidates for VP were spectacular. Whether it was Mark Kelly or Shapiro or Pritzker or Bashir, but I don't think anyone has anything negative to say about the pick of Tim Walz as Kamala Harris's running mate. All right. That's going to do it for us for the Breaking News Pod. If anything else happens, we will definitely update you on one of our social channels. Go follow the Ford News Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Follow Johnathan at FordJohnathan5. Follow myself at MiamiRadioBeast. We appreciate you guys for listening, and we look forward to the Harris Walz campaign. Got to get my order for my yard sign. It's got to go in now. We got to get that going. All right, Johnathan, we will check you next time, man.